Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in for another geopolitical analysis video. Today's topic is a widespread one and involves of course the assassination of Iranian General Soleimani and the unfortunate downing of Ukrainian passenger jet by Iranian defense. Now let's try to wrap our head around this and get some context. But before we do, let's dive into the past. Let's go back and understand the sequence of events that led what happened recently. So I urge you to read about the project for the New American Century. This was a neoconservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. that focused on U.S. foreign policy. It was established as a non-profit educational organization in 1997, founded by Reagan's Chief of Staff, William Kristol, and historian Robert Kagan, including John Bolton, who we all know was a recent national security advisor for Trump. Furthermore, a document called A Clean Break, a new strategy for securing the realm, is a policy document that was prepared in 1996 by a study group led by lobbyist and political advisor Richard Perle and Israel's PM Benjamin Netanyahu, which was calling essentially for the removal of Saddam Hussein and the meddling of Middle Eastern affairs. The project for the New American Century also had published a document called Rebuilding America's Defenses, essentially detailing the ways of global domination. Now you may ask, what are these connections with Iran? What does it have to do with it? Well, let's take a look closely to the quote here in the project document. It says that the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one. Absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor, domestic politics and industrial policy will shape the pace and content of transformation as much as the requirements of current missions. Yes, it appears that an incident of the likes of Pearl Harbor would justify the expansion of this dogma. Mind you, this was pre 9/11. This was presented to us in 2000. So in it was actually described a list of countries that were targeted for a regime change by Israel. Yes, Israel were pressuring the United States of America in the 90s a lot to change the regime of these nations. And we know that the neoconservatives, and yes, the Democrats as well, were paving the way for this agenda, for this project. For instance, let's look at how belligerent Hillary was acting over Iran during Obama's administration. Currently speaking, we got Mike Pence and Mike Pompeo, who are Christian Zionists, a movement that has been supporting the Israeli plans all along. Looking back in history, Theodore Herzl, who really founded the political Zionism ideology, when publishing The Jewish State, we saw that there was a wave of people who were pro-Israel organizations in the US and in England, which weren't really composed of Jews. One of those organizations are the Christian evangelicals, who are really a membership of 7 million, 2 million more members that of the entirety of the American Jewish community. And they amount to the organization called Christians United for Israel. They actually met in Washington a few months ago and attracted thousands of attendees, featuring speeches from Prime Minister like Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, Secretary of State and CIA former Director Mike Pompeo, VP Mike Pence, and also National Security Advisor John Bolton. Now, this group has been lobbying to maintain the agenda of the project for the New American Century by perpetrating the Zionist agenda. As you can see, the stronghold of Zionism in the US rules supreme. This is a death cult that has pushed all these American invasions and interventions of the countries below. We need to understand that all the current wars in the Middle East are intra-Arabic wars. Let's take a look at, for example, the assaults of of Saudi Arabia to Yemen, the Syrian crisis from the other side, ISIS killing many Arabs and many other minority groups, but not targeting Israel, the constant conflict of Sunnis and Shiites. All of this seems to be serving Israel, the greater Israel, the agenda of Zionism. That was what the Project for the New American Century was all about. This intra-Arabic conflict is only helping Israel to achieve these plans. We've seen that since Bush to Obama and Trump, the countries targeted by the US Army are all listed on the Project for the New American Century. From Libya to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, even North Korea, Bush and Blair, that oversaw the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and shortly after ticking off the list with Obama and Cameron, which oversaw the removal of Gaddafi and invasion of Libya, oversaw as well the manipulated war in Syria, which is again another country on the list. So just as Franklin Roosevelt lied America into war, so is Trump by creating these war conditions with Iran. Pearl Harbor in 9/11 has justified the invasion of US Army and coincidentally paved the way for this project of the New American Century. We know what Netanyahu said about 9/11. Notice how all these countries have been slammed for nuclear weapons when the US dismantled that agreement that had European countries and Iran signing about the deal for non-proliferation. That happened because things were quieting down with Iran. We all know that Israel contains nuclear weapons. We shouldn't be shocked by it. I mean, recently Netanyahu slipped the truth when he was making a statement about something else. So we know that these economic sanctions that were really levied on Iran were really serving a purpose to see a reaction out of Iran, to see another Arabic Spring come out from Iran that really would serve the provocateurs and CIA spies to take over and deliver the message. But the Iranian regime managed to take control of this. I'm not an apologist for Iran, but we must see this clearly for what it is. Iran was not threatening the US, but it really was on the list of the regime change countries on the document of the neocons that simply has transcended all administrations, regardless if it's conservative, Republican, or liberal. This leads me to one question. Why did they kill Soleimani? Why now? I guess because the sanctions did not get the appropriate response. It's simple as that. They did not get the appropriate response to topple the regime government of Iran. So this was an act really urged by Israel to kick off something, a reaction, something that could dismantle the government of Iran. Of course, he was an important piece of the establishment. He was a general, and a very loved one, as we know. America needs to fight theater wars for Israel, it seems, and use the US Army to deliver its own strategy in the Middle East. Considering the timing of this, the Israeli PM was actually in hot waters and faced public backlash due to indictment for corruption cases. So this event really swayed towards his direction as well. Now, if we look at John Bolton, for instance, we all know what happened with him being ejected from the Trump administration. But we don't know how really he got in, do we? Well, if we pay attention to Sheldon Adelson, who is an ultra-Zionist founder and chairman and security executive officer for Las Vegas Sands Corporation, he was a big funder of the Trump administration. He invested 113, I believe that was his donation, $113 million to the Trump campaign back in 2016. So Trump really took out Bolton because Bolton really ordered the planes to attack Iran and start a conflict. But we know that the electorate base of Trump is anti-war. A lot of people were appeased, even myself, we were appeased to hear that Trump is going to pull out the troops from the Middle East. But notice how the pieces are centered in serving Zionism. The personnel, the documents, the funding, all of this is a confirmation of what is happening. If Soleimani was a terrorist, then what is Trump and Netanyahu? They got blood on both of their hands. The thing is though, Soleimani killed a lot of ISIS and Daesh fighters in the region. It's no coincidence that after his death, ISIS was celebrating his assassination. Do you think really this is a coincidence? I think not. If Israel and also ISIS is celebrating the demise of the Soleimani Iranian general, do you think it means anything? I'll leave it up to you. I mean, let's hope that all of this fails and we don't see the consequences leading up to World War III. So I thought I'd share with you a quote that really stuck with me for a while now by Oliver Stone. It really sums up the state of our mainstream news media. Stay tuned for more, as my next analysis will be for BRI Project of China. Thank you.